Hey, welcome to another episode of Legion Elite Motorsports. And today I want to kind of dedicate a video for like the new owners or people who are new to Starquest, period, really. So I'm going to dedicate this video for you guys and kind of things to look out for as you go through your car. So let's get to it. Okay. First of all, for everyone who just purchased one of these cars and is not quite sure what it is, welcome. Starion, Conquest, they're all the same car, minus badging and maybe some taillights, give or take. Nothing too significant, but I know you're wondering about the engine and why Mitsubishi/Chrysler chose it. So this car actually came with two options of engines. It was the 4G63 wide block, which is single cam and still two valves. And then of course you could do modifications to that, yes. But they actually had the 2.6, which the engine code is called G54B or 4G54, either one. There's a non-turbo variant, that's a 4G54. G54B is a turbo variant, which is that. So, basically, they chose this one because they wanted to make this AKA a Japanese muscle car. So if you pay attention to the specs of the engine, it's actually 98 millimeter stroke with 91.1 bore, which is the identical piston size as its newer, younger brother, the 3000 GT. No, this didn't derive from the Eclipse or anything like that. This actually turned into the 3000 GT. So the 3000 GT has the same exact bore and wrist pin size. Note to self, very important. You'll hear why later. So besides that, people have been trying to get this engine to make huge amounts of power. Now, it's technically easy given it's been well maintained and things of that nature. We're going to get to the cons of this engine shortly, but the pros is that you can easily run a good quarter mile with just some modifications, maybe some multi-port and a different computer system. Reason why I say different computer system is that you're going to notice by owning this car, you're going to run into a lot of issues with trying to appease the computer. Okay, appease the computer basically saying you turn on the car, it's not running right. One of the injectors could be clogged or dripping, normal occurrence. Let's say you go to start the car and your knock box gives out, now you don't have any spark. Let's say you go start the car and you're running and driving and then it starts running really lean and you don't know why. Air math, just a whole bunch of situations that is trying to appease the stock ECU. So I always recommend for those hardcore, owners to go ahead and change the brains, and then from there, the car will do whatever you want. That's what I did. But yeah, so this car, mainly the motor, used to be the world's fastest four-cylinder at some point. It was like early 2000s, give or take. And it ran a quarter mile of 7.6 and some change. And this engine was the one that did it. This engine actually was utilized in a whole host of other cars, from pickup trucks to Monteros, the SUV, to forklifts, to a whole host of stuff. So to have this engine to have held something so important like the fastest four-cylinder in the world at some point is very significant, and the main thing with these motors is you want to make sure that you figure out all of the tricks. And what I like about tricks is that they're free. So for instance, we did an episode explaining how to shim your oil pump, right? What's the purpose of it? What does it help? What does it do? Basically, make sure that you don't drop bearings. When you notice with aftermarket gauge or oil pressure gauge, The oil pressure at idle on these things is pretty low. 18 psi is good, but sometimes you'll see, and this also depends on your oil viscosity, you'll see 15 to 14 psi, and that depends on temperature too. So that's not good. Long story short, you want to keep this thing above 25 at idle, basically. So a lot of people, how they combat that is by running 2050 or something like that to keep the oil pressure up, which works good, but it doesn't get to all the right places, so to speak. So you want to make sure that you use somewhat of a thinner oil. I'd say 1040, depending on mileage, depending if you rebuilt the engine that has fresh new bearings. It's a lot of depending. But once you figure out the secrets of this motor, it's an animal. Completely an animal. So because of the engine displacement, the horsepower looks slightly different. So out the factory, these come with, give or take, 170 to 180 depending on trim, which I'm pretty sure doesn't vary that much, but 180 horsepower produces 230 foot-pounds of torque. And on the American spec versions, these are factory limited slip clutch type differentials. So lots of fun, drifting potentials, but I wouldn't do it until you go through the motor properly, so it'll be more reliable, more or less. So I wanted to introduce you guys to this engine in general, to give a little, just a little smidgen of where this engine came from, what it's accomplished, and what it can do for you. So to save money, there's a couple things you should do, okay? Any wiring that you find in here that's crispy, broken, clips, or anything like that, replace it immediately so you can X that out from being in any issues or complications with the car. Like injector clips, those are known to crumble. As soon as you take it off, it crumbles in your hand. So replace that. Test your injectors, because injectors are actually kind of hard to get, and then the aftermarket ones aren't as reliable as original, so to speak. These made it 30 plus years. The aftermarket injectors, you'd be lucky to get 5 out of it. Lucky. So basically what you want to do is do that. If the turbos blow, don't rebuild it, just change it. Not going to hurt anything, and you'll save a lot more money that way. The air mass sensors, you want to try to collect as many as possible because they do go out. And also compatible version is the first generation Eclipse. Plugs right in almost. It has one extra pin that we don't use. It's fine. So then after that, we have the intercooler system, which works great, but you want to take this out and like probably get some purple power and some water, shake it up and clean it out. That is free horsepower right there. They get clogged, it gets built up with oil from blown turbos and stuff like that. So that's another one. Also the heads, they crack because of jet valves. I'll post a picture up here so you can see what a jet valve head looks like, and then I'll show you a picture over here that shows you a non-jet valve head. So this particular unit has a Caravan head. Yes, this came in a Caravan also. It was a front wheel drive carbureted Caravan, but it was non-jet valve, so there you go. Which I'll see if I can find a picture and put it. So yeah, so we'll put that in there, and then also, of course, freeing up some power would be getting rid of the stock exhaust. So you could do that. And if you are trying to rock AC, it is very possible. You have to go from a 12A system to a 134A system and kind of take it from there. Power adders, of course, will be making the computer adjustable. And there's a couple different ways you could do that, like Power FC, AFC, air, fuel, that thing. Also, you can use a air map translator, which was what I used to use back in the day when I was more new. And it works great. You do have to get out to adjust it unless you extend the wires and put it in your center console or wherever you want to put it. Optional, but it allows you to adjust the air-fuel ratio for a better operation and overall experience. Then you'll have something called it's called a fuel cut defender. So basically it keeps the engine from over boosting and running lean. And you technically don't need that as long as you got your air fuel ratio gauge and all of the proper instruments to monitor the engine to make sure it's not doing anything funny. So a way to kind of get past that is to ground out the fuel pump separately from the original wire. You can ground it anywhere back there. Okay, the actual harness runs up through the little peekaboo cover and over behind, I want to say, near the tail lights. So, with that being said, that should be good enough to kind of get you to where you want to be. Also, even with a good running motor, it's kind of good practice to change the oil pan gasket and check those bearings. Rod bearings, main bearings, all of it, check it so you don't have the engine blow up. And now, as far as the strength of the motor, how much can it handle, right? With this setup, which is throttle body injected, I've seen people go over 30 pounds with all of the monitoring and adjustability that you can do on the car. Limiting factor is the head, because it will crack at some point. The head gasket, because they're kind of weak unless you get the proper head gasket. And the pistons. The pistons are good up to about 450, and then they like to just disintegrate. So you want to keep that in mind. If you end up building the engine, that's even better. But the connecting rods is one of those things that you never have to replace. The connecting rods can hold about 6 to 700 horsepower, give or take, and depending on the tune. If you tune it way too advanced and you get a lot of knock or whatever, you're gonna bend anything, whether it's forged or not. So, you wanna keep these things in mind when you purchase these cars. And again, welcome to the Starquest world. And with that being said, we're going to call it an episode right there. But also, if you have any other questions or anything, definitely feel free to contact me. I'll be able to assist you either way. But yeah, I definitely had to make a video, for the newer people. I'm noticing a lot of Starions are trading hands, and mainly to people who like the way they look and don't really know too much about them. So if that's you, this video is for you. So with that being said, I hope you guys join me next time for the next episode. And remember, guys, knowledge is power. All right, see you next time.